Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Deborah Gagne. I'm with the Office of Information Management and Technology, and this is the Mapping Hawaii session. Through GIS technology, geographically referenced information links existing records to precise locations for spatial query and analysis. The state of Hawaii has been using GIS technology since the 1980s. As early adopters of the technology, the state has weathered some changes to its GIS program. This session provides an overview of the technology mapping in place in Hawaii and explores the endless possibilities available to agencies by tapping into the eye in the sky, all the eye in the sky has to offer. Excuse me. We have two speakers this afternoon. Our first speaker is Joan De Los Santos. She is the GIS Program Manager from the Office of Planning for the state of Hawaii. Joan's responsibilities with the state GIS program include maintenance of the multi-agency shared state GIS database and coordination of GIS data and projects with other federal, state, and local agencies. Joan has been working closely with the State Office of Information Planning and the Office of Information Management and Technology on a multi-year statewide GIS modernization project. A graduate of Hilo, Joan has worked in the GIS field for over 25 years and is currently serving as acting statewide GIS program manager. She is very involved in the GIS community in Hawaii and has served as a board member of the Hawaii Geographic Information Coordinating Council for over 7 years, where she is currently serving as vice president. Our second speaker this afternoon is Niall Feeney, Senior Technical Solution Consultant for Infor Public Sector. Niall Feeney is a Senior Technical Solution Consultant. This is his 8th year working with the Infor Public Sector software. As well as his current position, he spent 6 years in professional services where he predominantly worked on GIS integration with the IPS 8, previously Hansen 8 product. He is based out of Sacramento, California. Join me in welcoming our speakers this afternoon.
Thank you, Deborah. I'm here to tell everyone a little bit about the Statewide GIS program, our history, our vision for the future, the progress that we, along with OIMT and state agency partners, have made towards statewide GIS modernization. And then I'm going to give you some examples of some of the projects that our state agencies have been working on with GIS technology. Just a note. After I saw Tony's presentation on communication this morning, it became very clear that I needed to redo my entire presentation. Since there's no time for that, I focused on the video that he showed of a CIO imploding on stage because he forgot what he wanted to say. None of us want that to happen here today, so I'm going to read my presentation. I'd like to begin with some background and a little history of the program. And also, based on Tony's talk, I'm supposed to keep this really short. I'll try to talk fast through this history part. The state GIS program is housed in the Office of Planning, which is an attached agency to DBED. We're responsible by statute for leading, planning, and coordinating the state's GIS program and state GIS data for state agencies. There we go. Hawaii State government was an early adopter of GIS, funding the first generation GIS actually as early as 1977. Later, in '87, the legislature tasked the office with chairing a state agency task force to recommend a GIS platform that would provide maximum data with minimum redundancy and would permit public and private agencies to access, extract, and analyze spatial data, and these are still our goals and mission today. The state GIS was formed in 1988 as a result of the task force recommendations and was managed jointly by the Office of Planning and ICSD. The joint management of the statewide GIS was very successful, in large part due to its early leaders, Craig Tasaka in the Office of Planning, and most of you know Joy Toyama and Tami Ikehara in ICSD, and I'm not sure if they're here today, but they were great leaders. The statewide GIS was officially recognized by the legislature in 1996. Program thrived under OP and ICSD for several years with an ever-expanding group of users and a growing GIS database. OP eventually had a staff of 8 in the GIS program, and ICSD had a staff of 4 dedicated to GIS support. However, the layoffs and budget cuts of the 90s significantly impacted the GIS, reducing the number of staff to 3, and that's the number of positions we still have today, but there are only 2 of us actually working on it, and leaving no dedicated GIS support staff in ICSD. Funding was also drastically cut. In spite of the challenges, we made many accomplishments. We're proud of the partnerships and working relationships that we've forged through the years. Most important, of course, are partnerships with state agencies. We have over 150 state GIS data and system users from numerous divisions in 12 departments. And our partnership with ICSD and OIMT has come full circle. It was a partnership we began with in the 80s and the one we enjoy now with both OIMT and ICSD. In addition to state agencies, we work closely with all 4 counties and a number of federal agencies. We sit on the board of the Hawaii Geographic Information Coordinating Council, or HIGICC, and we're a member of the National States Geographic Information Council, or NSGIC. When faced with cutbacks, we determined the most useful role we could play for GIS users and state agencies was to continue to collect, maintain, and disseminate state GIS data. We have over 250 data layers, and almost all of these are available for download to the public. One of our greatest accomplishments was in the realm of open data, well before open data became a hot topic. OP was the first government agency in Hawaii to make GIS data layers available for download for free, and the first government agency in Hawaii to have metadata for 100% of our online data. In recent years, our focus has been on gathering, maintaining, and disseminating data, conducting geospatial analysis, and providing technical support to state agencies. So, we did okay for over 15 years with no funding and reduced staff. But in 2011 and 12, things changed when Hawaii got its first CIO. Sunny and Keone were interested in and knowledgeable about GIS, and they knew that in order to be successful, we'd need resources. So OIMT, along with OP, convened a GIS working group of stakeholders. Some of you probably participated in that. These were mostly state agency GIS users, but we also worked with HIGICC, the counties, federal agencies, and the private sector to get input on how the statewide GIS could be improved. The group held working group meetings from January through May of 2012, which resulted in a broad 10-year plan for modernization of the state GIS. OIMT took the plan of the ledge and was able to obtain the first GIS funding in over a decade, starting in 2013. So, here's a diagram showing where we were starting from. Obviously complicated, chaotic, and not at all efficient. And here's our vision. Essentially one authoritative information source with direct input from state agencies and a variety of output formats and mechanisms. The vision comes directly from the 2012 plan that I mentioned. The initial strategy was to place the state GIS infrastructure in ICSD in the new state data center and to obtain staffing resources with sufficient expertise to help us implement the plan. As we began to move forward, however, it became clear that the data center would not be ready due to delays in the arrival of equipment and resources, and would be a limiting factor in meeting the timelines of this project. The Pacific Disaster Center had both the infrastructure and the specialized expertise to allow us to begin implementation immediately. So a contract with PDC was executed by OIMT. The long-term plan is to move to state infrastructure when it's ready. We've made significant progress towards the vision. PDC helped us begin our modernization efforts by working with ICSD to establish network connections to the state network and set up infrastructure in the Hawaii State GIS node at PDC. The GIS node consists of VMware hosts connected to the state Next Generation network. In addition, they provide backup and disaster recovery support, user management, and technical expertise in the Postgres database, Esri's Spatial Database Engine, or SDE, ArcGIS Server, and Esri REST services. PDC and the state GIS have completed the conversion of the core state GIS database from flat files to a relational database. This is a huge accomplishment. Using Postgres with SDE, and have completed conversion of the state GIS metadata into a format that's compatible with federal standards. We're working on getting all of our various imagery layers available over the web so that agencies and the public can access them without having to have a copy of the imagery files, which are huge, usually hundreds of gigabytes. We recently made the most current statewide satellite imagery available for the first time as a web service, and we've had a lot of positive feedback on this new project from GIS users within and outside of state government. PDC has also created a basic viewer application to browse the state's GIS data holdings. A real breakthrough occurred when we, with OIMT funding, used Arcgis Online to establish a cloud mapping platform for the state. Arcgis Online is a collaborative, cloud-based platform that allows members of an organization to use, create, and share maps, apps, and data, and access authoritative base maps. We already have 91 users of the platform, creating internal and external web maps and web mapping applications. We've also published the state GIS data as REST services. I'd like to talk a little bit more about that. So let's look again at the vision. For those not familiar with REST, REST services. They provide a standard way for web clients to communicate with GIS servers through, and I always say this wrong, representational state transfer, REST technology. Our REST services pull directly from the converted database. The services can then be consumed via the web in ArcMap, which is a state software platform, in Arcgis Online, and by developers in their GIS applications. So this means for the first time, rather than having to make a copy of the data, users can be sure that they're always using the latest authoritative state GIS layers. When we update the database, we refresh the REST service, and anyone using that service will automatically see the refreshed data. Trust me, implementation of this technology is and will change the way GIS users interact with the state's GIS data. It's exciting stuff for GIS geeks. As I mentioned, the services that we publish can be pulled directly into desktop GIS, Arcgis Online, and web mapping applications using the web addresses of the service. But to use them, you have to know the web address of the service. So, as another step in our modernization, we've registered all of these services in Arcgis Online, which means that all you have to do to find live, authoritative state GIS layers, rather than having to visit our website to download the data or having to know the web address, is to search by the owner, Hawaii State GIS, plus one or more keywords such as reserves. This represents a real breakthrough in the way state GIS data can be discovered. As with the implementation of any new service model, the implementation has not been without issues or problems. For example, in the short time since we begun the modernization, technology and industry trends have already evolved. So we need to take a step back to assess whether our strategies and technology decisions still make sense or whether they need to be revised. And early in our implementation, we realized that there was a potential issue with the numbering and organization of the services, such that if a layer was added to or deleted from the service, other layers in the service would end up pointing to the wrong data or would even break. This became apparent when an agency began using REST services in an important, highly used web application, doing their best to implement the state GIS vision. Later, we needed to merge some layers, which resulted in layers used in the agency application being displayed incorrectly. We fixed the problem, but it did reveal a flaw in Esri's implementation of the REST model. For now, we've addressed the issues using some workarounds and by deploying custom services for that agency. We've learned that this has been a common problem among agencies using REST across the nation, and has been addressed in the latest version of the Esri software, which was actually just released on December 10th. As with any new release, it's being evaluated and will be deployed once impacts and benefits are understood. One of the most significant accomplishments in the state's GIS modernization effort is the implementation of a GIS ELA. This year, OIMT signed an enterprise license agreement with Esri the state's primary GIS software and platform provider. The ELA gives all state agencies unlimited access to nearly all of Esri's GIS products and an unlimited number of users authorized to use Arcgis Online. This is something the state GIS program first tried to implement in 2006. However, we were unable to obtain funding. OIMT was able to do so this year on behalf of all state agencies. We've been setting up policies and mechanisms for state agencies to utilize the ELA. I'll provide our contact information at the end of the presentation, and you can contact one of us in the GIS program for information on how to obtain and use the software. We've made good progress on the modernization effort, but we still have much to do to get to full implementation. Remember, this was a 10-year plan. The first thing we're going to do is, as I said, take a step back and assess the results of the implementation so far. Make any necessary adjustments considering lessons learned, new technology, and feedback from our users. Next, we'll give access to all state agency users to the database, the converted database, and when that is complete, we'll finally be able to retire our old file server, which is currently about 10 years old and is still in use and is, we worry every day that it will die. Of course, we'll continue to maintain the layers that we have and add new ones. We'll keep assisting agencies with cloud implementation and continue to work on the viewer. We've also just begun to configure an open data portal in the last few weeks. Once fully implemented, anyone will be able to find and download any of the state GIS data that's being served through REST and is registered in Arcgis Online. A user will be able to zoom to an area, filter by attributes, and export only the filtered records that they need clipped to their area of interest. This portal, once fully implemented, will represent yet another breakthrough in how people find and obtain GIS data. And this zip, clip, ship portal has been a goal of the state GIS for a number of years, and this new technology will allow us to get there. Now, as promised, I'll show you just a small sample of the GIS work being done by state agencies. Nearly all of these projects have used data and/or services provided by the state GIS program. The AG's Juvenile Justice Information System, or JGIS program, participates in Kokua Ohana Aloha, or KOA, which is an early intervention and drug awareness program hosted by the Hawaii National Guard. The program consists of classes for first-time status offenders between the ages of 12 and 17. KOA provides youth and their families with information and assistance in order to address problems that do not require the intervention of the police or family court, and helps families in understanding the risks of drug abuse and underage drinking. This particular map shows the residences of KOA participants by high school district. DBED is using GIS data and technology in the area of renewable energy. Renewable Energies is an application that was designed to provide renewable energy resource and site information for specific Hawaii locations selected by the user. In this application, a user can enter an address or parcel number and obtain information that would be relevant to assessing the potential and feasibility of renewable energy development at that site. DCCA is using GIS to display areas of wireless broadband service and locations of speed tests to understand where broadband is, what kind of speeds are seen in those areas, and where broadband is missing. DOT Airports has developed a GIS-based property application. They import CAD drawings of their facilities and join them to property lease agreement data from the property management system. They also have a pavement management module that shows runway conditions, inspection data, and so on. DOT Harbors is using GIS to catalog Chapter 343 environmental documents by location. They're also implementing a GIS-based asset management system for storm drains to monitor and manage stormwater runoff into the harbors. The state DOE uses GIS to solve a variety of problems. For example, they're using GIS to monitor the Puna lava flow in relation to student population, bus routing, and school relocation. They also have applications for school trash bin management for scheduling and monitoring trash pickups at the schools, and they've adopted developed facility locators, which needed to obtain information on their 260 campuses and 5,000 buildings. The DOH Injury Prevention Section released an online map developed by the statewide GIS program to use the cloud's mapping environment, showing the locations of EMS-attended motor vehicle crashes involving pedestrians on Oahu, to help identify and analyze areas having high concentrations of pedestrian accidents. DHHL is using Arcgis Online, which I mentioned, for staff collaboration on the long-term maintenance of their water infrastructure. This map depicts water-related infrastructure servicing DHHL Molokai homestead communities. DOH's, and I don't know the words for the acronym, but DOH's HERE branch has coordinated information to their, has added coordinate information to their contaminated sites database. This map was created using that information and was used in contaminant awareness training to show non-environmental workers why they should use site history knowledge and planning before they dig. The DOH Disease Outbreak Control Division completed an online map where a user can see at a glance which clinics have flu vaccines in stock, along with clinic hours and other relevant information. The data in the map is updated regularly. Previously, this information was only available in tabular PDF format. DLNR created a popular online Hawaii flood hazard assessment tool to assist Hawaii residents and property owners in locating and evaluating their flood hazard risks based on FEMA's firm maps. This application is currently being updated to newer technology. The Office of Planning has developed a number of applications, including Find Your Legislator apps, as well as a variety of applications highlighting demographic information from DBED's Read Division, and a number of popular locator applications in which a user can enter either a parcel number or an address and obtain information about their parcel, for example, zoning or soil ratings. In addition, the CZM program has hired a consultant to develop an application that will help state and county planners evaluate various permit applications. So as you can see, we've done a lot of work and made a lot of progress. Much of it is as a result of the vision and commitment of OIMT to improving the state GIS. Our user base is growing, they're finding new uses for GIS data and technologies, and will continue to move forward toward the vision of a modern, useful, usable enterprise GIS for the state of Hawaii. Thank you, and I think we'll be taking questions after Niall's presentation. So the next speaker, Niall Feeney, will now talk about how vendors can leverage GIS in government agencies.
Thank you, Joan. Everybody can hear me okay? Good. Everybody still awake? Good. Joan. Thanks, Joan. Okay. First off, I'm trying to marry what Joan was talking about with your guys' GIS or with local government GIS. That's predominantly what Infor do. Myself, I was working with services implementing GIS for must be 8 years, and a lot of the time to go out and implement a GIS program and connect that, if you will, to various departments within within an agency such as planning, public works, requires a lot of steps before you get an application out there that's usable. So that's kind of what I want to talk about today. So in the case of what we do, and I'll relate a lot of what I'm talking about to what our, what our business model is and how we can leverage the GIS data that you guys have at your disposal, which a lot of which Joan went through. There are things like REST services, how we can consume REST services, how all of that data is somehow linked back to an application that carries out other types of tasks for you. Like I said, such as, let's take a look at some of these. And again, our model is all based on GIS, starting from a GIS interface, using GIS in your everyday workflow, basically leveraging that GIS so it's truly useful to you as a user. And when I say a user, whether we're talking about somebody within a department or somebody out in the public too who wants to use your guys' GIS data to do these type of things. Permits, licenses, and cases, for instance. That's one area where our software enables the user, both in the agency and outside of the agency to, get building applications, inspections, planning, projects, to get all that type of stuff up off the ground. You can leverage GIS to do most of those things for you. And again, we have to have some way to link that GIS back to the processes that you guys use daily. So that would be what we call the CDR side of it, the permitting, the licensing, the cases. We have also asset and work management. So I have inspectors in the field, going out, I create a work order, we'll say, at the counter, that's sent out to somebody on a mobile device. How those sort of processes are kind of linked back to your GIS also. And then we have a utility billing tool, again, which does, again, mostly address and contact data we use in there. But again, the key to all of this is, and I've noticed in the last 10 years or so since I was doing this, where GIS was looked upon as just, well, okay, you're a mapping guy, that's generally all you do, right? You show us fancy maps. But the way we've always tried to look at GIS is it's really useful data with a nice fancy front form on it, and it's how to leverage this data and use it, and use it in whether it be, in your everyday work life, how you can use that data really to kind of improve that. So leverage your agency GIS. So first of all, you want to get your GIS in a usable format. And what I mean by usable format is, let's we'll take one of the REST services that Joan's group would put out available to everybody. That's nice, and the uses that those guys use it for are great. But if we want to link that type of data back to, I'm a building inspector and I want to see the type of inspections that are in my immediate vicinity on a map quickly. How do we link that data that is readily available here to somebody who does these type of processes day in, day out, to actually make it useful for them? So that's primarily what I mean by usable. Just massaging your GIS data, first of all, to make it useful. And again, various vendors have different ways of doing that, whether it's working with the client or the agency to get all of the various pieces of data into a service or multiple services, depending on how you want to use that data. And then what we call linking that GIS data back to your, whether it be your building applications, your planning applications, some customer service type stuff. How do we link all of that back? The other thing too, and again I kind of spoke about it in terms of how GIS has changed in public sector over the years, from just having a map at your disposal that you could look at occasionally to actually using it as a form, as a user form to carry out specific tasks. So for instance, if I wanted to start a planning application directly from a map, you could go into our application and do that. If I wanted to find an address, again, with our integrated map, we can do that type of stuff too, whether it be work orders, service requests, all of those type of things, and linking them back then to the processes within your agency. So starting from the map is, believe it or not, was one of those big areas a lot of our public sector clients wanted the ability to do within our software. So instead of just logging into our application and going straight to a form that said, I'm going to open up a planning application, and all the details involved in that, they wanted to log in and go straight to a map and straight to an address or a parcel and say, I'm going to initiate that process from here. Workflow, okay? That, again, how do we bring GIS into a kind of a decision-making workflow? So for instance, if I wanted to open if I was working in an agency and somebody wanted to initiate or open a building application on a particular address on a particular parcel, we can initiate a workflow to go out and mine GIS data and pull us back information that would basically make our decision for us. So in other words, we can't initiate a building or a building application on this particular parcel because it's in an area of environmental sensitivity. So again, if you store that type of data, which a lot of people do in their GIS, you can go out and mine this type of data, bring it back into your workflow, and basically, help with your decision-making process. And then, of course, mobility. Everything now is about mobility. We have, field inspection tools, asset management tools, ability to go out and create work orders, close inspections, all of that type of stuff. And then again, being able to do that on a map format I have some screenshots of the type of things that we've done in the past further on in the presentation. And then finally, I have it in a different color because the three I spoke about there are directly, you can tie them directly to an agency. You can tie them to the sort of things that people in public agencies would do, either from behind the counter, on a mobile device, or workflow. But how can we encourage our consumers, which are technically the public, how can we encourage them to use GIS, again, with these type of processes? Public portals, and I know you spoke a little bit about your web portals, Joan, about, again, using public portals so that you empower citizens to go online and start creating their own, their ability to apply for permits themselves online. Follow how those permits are being done within the agency, all of that type of stuff. So we have, and again, initiating those things through a GIS map. So the first thing I spoke about there was usable, how to make your data usable. I mean, there's obviously a lot of the time for a lot of GIS folks, there's a lot of grunt work involved with that, sitting down, cleaning up your data, making the sort of data that you want to make public. You want to make sure that there are certain fields within that data that you obviously don't want people to see. So there is that side of it, but there's also the fact that from we'll say from a vendor application, how do I link to data? So to using ours as an example, we would have a database with all of our data in it, assets, all of the various types of applications, project, building, etc. But we still have to link to, whether it be a GIS service, we have to have some way of doing that, and we use our integrated map browser for that. But we still want to be able to get the, link the data. And so we have a tool called GeoAdministrator, which is just an ESRI extension. We work very closely with ESRI on these things. And this enables the user, it's basically a data maintenance tool. It allows you as a GIS user to sit at a desk and link your assets, link your parcels, link your addresses directly out to, whether it be public works data or planning data, anything like that. And it brings our application basically right into your ArcGIS. So like I said, it's an integrated editing and data maintenance tool. It does all that kind of back-end data maintenance for you. You can even bring mapped fields. You could map other data and pull it straight into our application. Or you may choose to leave pertinent pieces of your GIS data in your GIS, but you can still bring up the forms and tables within the kind of the form of our tool. So that would be identifying and repairing any orphan data. So if we have assets, are always a good example. If I have water hydrants or something like that that I store in say in our application, and I want to link that somehow to my GIS, this tool will identify that again through what we have these key linkages. And I didn't want to get too heavy into that because it's basically all done through what we call linked keys. So we can create inventory directly from your GIS. So I could, pick an address in GIS, link it directly to our tool so that I can go in and initiate searches on addresses, assets, and parcels in there. Okay, so I talked about mobility. So these are the types of visions we'd have going forward for, working with agencies within Hawaii. First thing would be the type of mobile form, and all the screenshots you see here they're live products. So these are all in use right now by various clients of ours throughout the country. So in this particular one, these are inspections, various type of inspections. We have an inspector in the field. He or she knows where the various inspections are based on, because we can tie those inspections directly to a inspector, to a group. And then at a glance, you can go in there, you can fill in the information on it, close it, reassign it to somebody else, etc. Again, a general mobile tool, but you are leveraging your GIS to kind of help you with those tasks. I spoke a little briefly about how we use GIS, or how various agencies use GIS to make decisions. And again, the example I gave of the building application within an environmentally sensitive area, once you run through the process, it mines live GIS data to tell the user, or to tell even if it's the applicant, that that wouldn't be possible on this, within this area, district, parcel, address, etc. So the map browser, and that's really central to, again, our vision, how we use our tool, in that when you initiate something from the Infor public sector application, you can have the ability to start it from a map. And again, that means running through, creating applications of various types, inspections, etc., customer service requests, all of those things we can initiate from a map now. So when you log in, your map comes up and you start your day's work. We can tie various queries to your profile too. So if I'm a supervisor, I have a group of inspectors working for me. Those inspectors have a number of tasks that they have to do, whether, go out and close various inspections. I can have a query that runs automatically when I log in as a supervisor every day, telling me what my staff have on their, basically on their to-do list for that day, and give it to me in a map format, a report format, or what we call a dashboard format, which are small little, basically small widgets which would give various reports on people, places, or the various type of applications. Search and query, again, just the ability for you as a user to go in and search for everything that's pertinent to you and show it to you, give you those results in a GIS format, okay? And again, I'll have a screenshot or two to kind of show you what I mean by this. We have what are called dynamic action commands. So again, if it's all about our vision was, and that's why this application kind of works the way it does now, was to make these dynamic action commands contextual. So for instance, if I'm working with assets, I will have a set of asset tasks available to me within my map, creating work orders, those type of commands, as opposed to if I'm a planner and I'm initiating planning applications, I will have a separate set of commands and tasks available to me in the map again that are pertinent to somebody in the planning department. So that's kind of what the dynamic action commands is. Profiles, again, we call it profiles, but to heavy GIS users, you're just talking about grouping. So if, again, there's so much GIS data that gets published. If we're consuming services with 50 layers in it, we don't want every user of our application to be able to see all 50 layers. So we can create simple profiles for them. So if I work in the water department, I'll have water mains, hydrants, nodes, that type of information that I can see in the map. But I won't have maybe the sanitary stuff or parcel information and things like that. So we can create profiles that are user specific. PLP, which is basically it's a way that enables us within, this is where we kind of use our services to create little buttons or tasks within a map, so that'll give the user, for instance, we can use PLP to create a report that takes all the results from my map, puts a screenshot and a report, and then enables you to print it straight off. So we can have customized, if you will, presentation of reports within the application itself. We work heavily with ESRI and OpenLayer, so we're OGC compliant. So like I said, we're OpenGIS Consortium, so we can basically work with any application that's OGC compliant. But again, we work strongly with ESRI. So again, in terms of, and I'll just kind of go through this kind of at a high level. In terms of how you would use our tools from a start to finish rollout of linking GIS with the tasks that you do within your agency. You see on the very left-hand side, we have what the GIS technician does. So since you're working with live GIS, you obviously want somebody that knows the data, works with it daily. You don't want, you don't want the public or members of staff that are not GIS users to be able to use GeoAdministrator. It's an extension to ArcMap, and all it does is synchronize data between GIS and Hansen so that you can leverage that GIS data to use when you're, like I say, when you're opening a building application or planning or project or any one of these other tasks you can do with IPS. So once the data is synchronized, then it moves over to the user interface. And the user interface is basically what the counter user would be using, the mobile user, the stuff that the people that use GIS but don't necessarily have to have a lot of knowledge about GIS to use the tool. They're just using GIS to carry out these IPS or Hansen specific tasks. So again, the agency would would publish REST services, a map service of some kind that we can consume. And once we've consumed that, we use the integrated map browser to work on it, okay, to initiate these tasks. I have a little, I know it's kind of hard to see, the writing is kind of small, but the little guy with the pickaxe is the data miner tool, and the data miner tool is our ability to mine live data as part of a process. So as well as using it in, we'll say, an application workflow, you can also use it with something, again, like an asset where there's large amounts of data stored in your GIS that you don't want to put in maybe in a vendor database. You just want to be able to view it, but through the application. You can link that stuff to Data Miner. We can create a customized detail page that you just click on, and it goes away and mines that specific GIS data and pulls it back into the application. So this is kind of the idea. You'd have your, for instance, on the right-hand side here, you see there's a screen. Again, it may be difficult for folks in the back to see, but that's an address. We can initiate, you can go in and initiate an address search from there, and then you can carry out a series of Hansen tasks from the little drop down on the address in the middle. So there are things like browsing history, creating an incident on it, creating a work order directly on the address, submitting a service request on it, and the show information gives you all the information on the address itself. On top, there is a again, within that box in the middle, there's what we call browse history. And browse history is very good for address stuff, because anything that's linked to an address, all the applications that are the applicants themselves, so all the contact information, assets, cases, license applications, service requests, the whole historical, all the historical data that's kept on that address, whether it be current applications or past ones, we can all get to it through the what we call the browse history button. So again, this map that you're viewing is viewable through, along the top, again, it's difficult to see, but along the top are the various modules that that your GIS would work with. So you'd have asset management, you'd have work management, and then all what we call the community-driven stuff, like your building applications, planning applications, project applications, customer service stuff, all along the top. And again, we would use that linked GIS data that we've created and worked with you guys to get to a level that's usable in this format. And then basically we can search and work with them and create various types of processes directly from the GIS data. Again, this one is where we're using the map for asset work as opposed to addresses. So again, we can look up various types of assets. We can initiate the address search from the right-hand side, which would have, you know, a list of layers. They're all actual Hawaii-based GIS layers. And again, we can browse that asset, which is very much like the browse history one we had for addresses, but we can create inspections. We can create work orders directly from the map, as well as group work orders. Again, directly from the map, we select what we want, and we use that action button up on the top left. That's the dynamic action button I was talking about. It would have a series of actions directly related to the type of asset that you have selected in your map format. Okay? So the integrated map for various types of applications. These are what we call use applications. So, you know, use applications to set up a stall on a street or these types of things. Again, the same idea. That information is being pulled actually from our application itself and being displayed on a map format. All the map format you're looking at here is actually an Esri service. But again, we have the ability to view that on any type of base map that you want to. And again, it's all, I can interact with every one of those, what we call map markers that are available there. So that was kind of a high-level description of how, you know, the sort of work really in the past and hopefully in the future that we'll be doing with you guys on bringing in these various departments and using the readily available GIS data that you have at your disposal to kind of do these everyday work practices. So thank you for your time. And if there are any questions for either me or Joan, you can. Yes, sir.
One of the things we deal with in trying to create our database is a form with a TMK, tax map key, and coding. One of the challenges that mapping a multiple TMKs,
Okay.
which is like a trail that's over 1,000.
Right.
So that's the challenges. And I wonder if other planners here deal with that?
Yeah, is that TMK data, is that stored within like parcel data? Would you store it with the parcel? Would you store it with the address? Where would you?
Well, it's described in the form that they enter all the TMKs, and so let's say it's a trail from Honolulu all the way around the Honolulu. So that's over 1,000 TMKs. So we're challenged, I mean, the form just asks for specific TMKs, but then in this case, it's over 1,000 TMKs.
Okay.
So we've just been trying to address that issue.
So what exactly is a TMK? I'm sorry, I don't. It is a parcel.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, yeah. Yeah, okay, so, right, okay, so if we just look at a TMK itself as just a parcel, then we obviously do manage parcels themselves within this application and tie them to either, we have something called a property, right? And it's a way we can classify large amounts of parcels and addresses and tie them all together. I showed you that contact and property browser for the address. Well, we can link addresses right back to parcels, and put it, so for instance, like a high-rise building with multiple, that sits on a lot with multiple parcels and multiple addresses, we can tie it in under one scenario called a property. We could do something similar for if you wanted to tie multiple parcels, for instance, back to something. And we have seen that a lot with large agencies that we work with, like New York, Chicago, that would do that type of stuff. Yeah, I mean, that's how we would store that type of information in our application. We'd probably store it as a parcel. Any other questions? Just the one then. Okay, thanks folks for your time.